This is Legacy Battle. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, notification button. I'm Michael Ives, creator of Legacy Battle. My panelists tonight from the Gridiron Battle Zone, Brian King, Steelers Nation South, Steelers Nation South. That's a lot of S's. Rollo Coffin. And you might remember from a prior show, we have Jockey Betty Jo Goodwin here. She is a women's jockey and has now interviewed a lot of people as well and has her quite a great career. So we're happy to have her back. Our special guest tonight is here for a debate of the greatest horse of the last 50 years. So there's been 4 Triple Crown winners in that time. We're going to discuss each of those. And then, as always, we'll have a Q&A after. But we're joined by a jockey with over 1,000 career wins, an inductee into the North American Indigenous Hall of Fame. He is the GOAT of Canterbury Park. I don't think there's an argument against that. So we want to welcome Nick Goodwin. Nick, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Awesome. So let's jump into our debate tonight. Greatest horse of the last 50 years. If you're a big horse lover, please check our archives. We've done greatest horse prior to 50 years back, and we've done greatest jockeys and all kinds of things. But let's start with Brian tonight.
Okay, so I'm bringing you American Pharoah. In 2014, American Pharoah, he got off to a great start and won the 2-year-old Horse American Championship. But his 2015 year as a 3-year-old was just off the charts. So to fully understand how great American Pharoah was, one has to understand what the Grand Slam of thoroughbred racing consists of. For this, a horse must, in the same year, win the Preakness Stakes, the Belmont Stakes, the Kentucky Derby, and either the Travers Stakes or the Breeders' Cup. At the Kentucky Derby, Dortmund was 6-0 heading into that race, and many felt that he would dominate. Dortmund was first out of the gate, but American Pharoah overtook him on the final turn and ultimately won the race by a length. At the Preakness, American Pharoah was able to win by 7 lengths over Tail of Verve, despite a downpour which began just prior to post time and drastically changed the condition of the track. At the Belmont, American Pharoah dominated and led the race from wire to wire. He became the 12th Triple Crown winner in horse racing history with that victory, and his time was 6th fastest in track history. Then in the Breeders' Cup Classic, which is considered by many in the industry to be the premier race of the year over the Derby, American Pharoah posted the 7th best time in that race's history and was able to take home the win, completing the distinct honor of the aforementioned Grand Slam of thoroughbred racing, a feat which only one other horse has ever accomplished. That was back in the 40s. On top of all that, the awards just rolled in. We had 2015 3-year-old American champion, the NTRA Moment of the Year, the Secretariat Vox Populi Award, the IFHA World's Best Racehorse, and in 2021, he was inducted into the United States Racing Hall of Fame. And his legacy will continue in his offspring. You were talking about, as of 2020, 7 of his offspring had combined for 8 major wins, but I'm sure it'll be many, many more in the future. So that's American Pharoah.
So, Nick, you've ridden this horse. Tell us how he rides and your thoughts on him.
Yeah, I rode him way back before he started any of his racing career. He was nice to ride, real smooth, had a real easy way of going, and he was fast. I rode him over at McCathin's farm when they had a mini breeze show type thing for some people. I breezed him just the easy quarter, I believe, over there. But he was like I say, he was really nice to ride.
Did you rode him when he was young? Did you think he was going to become what he became? Did you see that in him at that time period?
Well, you never exactly know how great they're going to be at a young age, but you can. The elite horses that I've rode throughout the years have a distinct characteristic of what they like. Usually they're easy to ride and they handle everything really well, and they have a different way of going and he had all that going. So I knew he was going to be something really good. How great I didn't know exactly how great, but I figured that he was going to be a really nice horse.
Well, let's move on to Betty Jo.
Okay, so I have Justify. Justify is an American thoroughbred racehorse who is known for being the 13th winner of the American Triple Crown. He was actually purchased at the yearling sale by China Horse for 500,000. China Horse and Maverick Racing, and he then went on to train with Bob Baffert. Drayden Van Dyke broke his maiden first time out. I remember watching the race, and we kind of said, "Oh, this horse is going to be special," and he was pretty special. He was a TDN Rising Star. After that, he ended up winning 6 for 6. So he went 6 for 6, including the Triple Crown, which is a feat in himself. He has won over $3.8 million. He has run from distances 7 furlongs to 12 furlongs, from fast tracks to sloppy tracks. He was super versatile, and he's definitely passing that on to his now babies because he went to stud. Unfortunately, he did end his career. For us racing fans, short, we always kind of want more. We want to see him more. But he was such a great stallion prospect that he ended up leaving his career in the racing industry and started to have babies. And since then, he is one of your top sires. When they say, "Oh, this horse is by Justify," that you drool over him. So one of his greatest sons is Arabian Lion, and Arabian Lion in himself had won the Grade 1 Woody Stevens at Belmont Park and the Sir Barton Stakes at Pimlico. So Justify as a whole has been just a magnificent horse to the industry. He's just fabulous, and he's passing that on to his prodigy.
So, Nick, with Justify, he is also the first horse since Apollo in 1882 to win the Kentucky Derby without racing as a 2-year-old. So, what is special about that, and your thoughts on this horse?
Yeah, it's like to win the Triple Crown races as a 3-year-old. It's a very taxing and on a young horse, and it's really hard on a horse that doesn't have as much experience, because especially the Kentucky Derby, it's a 20-horse field usually every year, and it's traffic, and with such lightly raced horse, that is pretty amazing to see how he handled that. As far as his stud career, he has taken off really well. Like he's had 2 Triple Crown or 2 Breeders' Cup winners last year, one on the dirt and one on the turf. The filly Just FYI and the other filly Hard to Justify. They're both nice. Actually, the farm I work at, not at now Brennan's farm, we have Hard to Justify there right now, and I ride her every day.
Oh, wow. So you're riding the offspring. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm riding Hard to Justify, the 2-year-old juvenile turf filly winner.
Well,
She's
let's move
big.
on. Let's move on to our probably most famous horse that we're speaking tonight, as far as people knowing the name, and that's Seattle Slew.
Seattle Slew, in 1975, was purchased by Mickey and Karen Taylor and Dr. Jim Hill for just $17,500. But when they bought Seattle Slew, they believed he would be a great horse, but most considered him to be unattractive. And a lot of people said he looked like Baby Ewing. As he would mature into a 2-year-old, that is when Seattle Slew would become the dominant horse that would win his first race by 5 lengths. He would win his next 5 races by an average of 4.45 lengths heading into the 1977 Kentucky Derby, where he was a huge favorite. At the Derby, Seattle Slew would start horribly, falling to the back of the pack, and was actually trapped behind a wall of horses. But after 2 furlongs, he had made it through the pack and into second behind For the Moment. At the top of the stretch, Seattle Slew pulled away by 4 lengths, but slowed it down just a little bit to win by 1 3/4 lengths. 2 weeks later at the Preakness, he would face the favorite Cormorant, who was considered the horse to win the fastest time at the Preakness. But Seattle Slew would run the 3rd fastest time of the 1 3/16 mile distance, 2 legs down for the Triple Crown. And then he would go into the Belmont as another huge favorite in front of 70,000 fans. He would take the early lead. And after a brief push from Run Dusty Run and Spirit Levels, Seattle Slew would pull away easily, winning the Belmont Stakes by 4 lengths on what was a muddy track. He was the 10th Triple Crown winner, but the first horse to carry an undefeated record through the Triple Crown. But what makes him the greatest, in 1978, for the first time, 2 Triple Crown winners had faced each other, and he wound up beating Affirmed by 3 lengths. He was also one of 2 horses all time to go undefeated, like I mentioned before, for the Triple Crown. Justify, who we just talked about a little bit earlier, was the other. Seattle Slew was inducted to the National Museum of Racing in 1981.
Made even more famous by Jim Carrey in Liar Liar, when he brought up the line about the wife had been ridden more than Seattle Slew in the trial. So,
and Seattle Slew had his own clothing. He had his own clothing line. People were wearing Seattle Slew shirts and hats and
there you
all
go.
kinds of stuff.
So Nick, with Seattle Slew, as mentioned, he was undefeated, just like Justify, going into the Triple Crown, won all 3. Is there momentum in horse racing? Like, does a horse feel momentum at all? I know the jockeys would, but it could be a different jockey each time.
Yeah, I would say horses feel the momentum. They have the desire to win, and they some horses thrive on the energy of winning and the energy of the surroundings and the hype and stuff. It's like I would think they're like any human athlete. They're athletes. So your human athletes, some of them thrive in big games and thrive in like, let's say, the Super Bowl, the playoffs. You're great athletes, and I think great thoroughbred athletes are similar.
And I know Seattle Slew was before your time, as is our next horse, but just what were your thoughts on what he had accomplished in his career?
I was 3 years old when he won the Triple Crown, and I remember watching him on TV. I mean, from a young age, and he was one of my favorites growing up, because I seen him on TV, or in '77. I was 2. I was really young, but I remember the Seattle Slew and stuff. But I think some of his great he was a great sire. Like he threw AP India is one of his sons, Slew of Gold. And he was a champion all the years he raced, and he was broodmare champion of the year, and his daughters went on to produce great horses like Cigar and Lemon Drop Kid. So his sire, as a sire, he really threw a lot of good horses, and in the line of thoroughbreds.
So before we move on to our last horse, I just want to say to everybody who's saying, why isn't Secretary in this debate? He missed the debate by 1 year. We went back 50 years. So in case anybody's wondering that, but he is in our prior debate. So go watch that one in the archives. Our final horse tonight is going to be Affirmed. He is the 11th winner of the Triple Crown in 1978. It would take 37 more years before we would have another Triple Crown winner, which was, of course, Brian's American Pharoah. But he's got 19 career major wins, 14 Grand One stake races. He's an American champion at 2 years old and 3 years old. Won those awards in 77 and 78. And then he wins in 79, the American champion older male horse. So he's got all the accolades. And of course, he was the American Horse of the Year in 78 and 79. 1980, they placed him in the Hall of Fame. So it didn't take long. 1 year out, he's in the Hall of Fame. At 4 years old, which is old for a racing horse, he won 7 of 9 starts. So that's a pretty impressive stat for that age. And in his career, 29 races. Listen to this record: 23 wins. So that's 23 first place finishes, 4 seconds, a third, and a fifth. So he never finished lower than 5th in any of his races. Some consider him the best because he had to race against Aladar. I think I'm saying that name right. They raced 10 times, and he was a big rival back then, and he ended up having a 7-3 record against Aladar, so pretty good there. When he retired, he also became a stud. I mean, that's the common theme here tonight. These horses are all studs. Sired over 80 stake winners and 9 champions who have collected, and this is only as of 2004, so it may be more by now, but as of 2004, they collected $44 million in winnings, his sires. So, but sadly, he did pass away in 2001. They had to euthanize him. He fell ill with a hoof disease. So we did lose him in 2001, but I believe that he is the GOAT tonight, and that was why I chose him as my horse. Nick, come to you here on our last horse, Affirmed. Another one. You were a young child, of course, but his accolades speak for himself. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Affirmed was a very great racehorse. I mean, the races he ran against Aladar, especially the Belmont, will be one of the it'll be one of the famous races of all time. The duel between them two horses. One interesting thing I found out about Affirmed was that he was born here in Ocala, Florida.
Yes, Marion County. I saw
Marion
that.
County. And so that was pretty neat. He also he was the record holder for most money won at that point in time. The money he won was was the record holder for that. So that was pretty neat. And I like Steve Cawthon. I know of him, and I've met him a few times throughout the years. But at a young age, his jockey become Triple Crown winner. I mean, that's pretty spectacular in itself. So his regular rider, he was really young when he won the Triple Crown. So that's great. What I like about it.
How impressive is it for a 4-year-old to go out there and win 7 of 9 races?
That's pretty impressive. Like nowadays, you don't really see horses run past their 3-year-old year for the most part. It's sad because their value as a sire goes they're worth so much that they don't want them to get hurt. But back then, I mean, horses ran longer.
Right.
So that's spectacular. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's move into our vote tonight, guys. Cannot pick your own as always. Let's see, Brian, who are you taking?
This is tough. These are all really good horses. I mean, it speaks for itself that they're all Triple Crown winners. I'm really torn, but I'm going to go with Affirmed just because I like the fact that the extra longevity was able to accomplish some things in multiple years, which is very impressive to me. So I'll go with Affirmed.
Rollo?
Well, it can't be Affirmed for me because he raced Seattle Slew twice and came behind him twice. So, Justify in his first 2 races was on horrible tracks. The Kentucky Derby was wet. The Preakness was foggy and nasty. So and he was also the second horse to go undefeated through the Derby. So I got to go with Justify.
Betty Jo?
I actually, and I love Seattle Slew, and I love that he goes back to, just producing so many great racehorses throughout his time, and he's probably the reason why we have so many of these nice horses that we do now. So I'm a Seattle Slew.
Yeah, for me, Seattle Slew has the name, but I listen to everybody's arguments, and I know I've seen all these horses actually accept Seattle Slew run. I've seen it in archives, of course. I wasn't able to see it live, is what I mean. And I actually thought American Pharoah was the best of the 4. It's not often that we split it 4 ways on this show. So my vote's going to American Pharoah. Nick, the pressure's on you. It's a good thing you got 1,000 wins. Looks like you'll be picking our winner tonight. Who you think was the best?
Well, they're all really good in their own special way, you know. I mean, they've all accomplished great feats that's why there's only been 13 Triple Crown winners. It's such a hard race or series of races to win. And so with that said, I'm leaning towards Seattle Slew, just the fact that his sire power is such great. You know, his broodmare, he sired APND as one of his daughters did. Justify goes back to Seattle Slew. He's Slew of Gold, Vindication, Flute, Capote, Swale. They all were sons of Seattle Slew. And also the fact that he did beat Affirmed twice as a racehorse. So that's my vote, Seattle Slew.
So a win tonight for Seattle Slew and Rollo. So nice job, guys. Let's move into our Q&A. We'll go Rollo, since you got the win. You got first question. We'll go Betty Jo, Brian, me.
Nick, you have over 1,000 firsts in your career. What was your most memorable and why?
Probably my first win, my very first win of my career. It was on a horse that my dad trained. I galloped it all the time up in Winnipeg, Canada, and it was racing against a really good friend of mine's horse. And I come from off the pace, going 7/8 of a mile, and got up and won by like a length. The horse's name was Midori, but it was special because it was my dad's horse, and it was my very first professional win.
That's so funny. That was going to be my question. I was going to ask about that, but that's all right. Go ahead, Betty.
So my question is, over your career, you've had the opportunity to ride some of the greats in racing, American Pharoah being one of them. But can you tell us maybe two of those horses over this, period of time that you enjoyed the most, or that you just like to be able to be a part of their history?
Well, one is the quarter horse Danger. I rode him as a 2-year-old up in Canterbury Park for Dean Fry, and it was something different about him. He had a way of moving and a way of going that was really easy and great. And anyways, I won broke his maiden for Dean, and then Dean shortly left after that and went to Ruidoso to run him in the All-American Series. And he qualified 11th fastest for the All-American, which he didn't get into the gate, but he did. If anybody knows about Ruidoso in the All-American trials, the weather can change, and they can go from a tailwind to the headwind, and it's all timed by fastest time. So he did miss the All-American by, I don't know how many, what was the exact time, but he went on to win the Consolation, which was a race or two before the actual All-American that same day, and he won by 5 lengths and run a faster time than the All-American. He also ran till late in his he was running till last year, where he ended up passing away of a aneurysm that it was on when he was at the track. But anyways, he ended up being 2-time horse of the year, and he was really nice to ride. He was quiet. He liked to walk to the track, stop, look at horses, stop, look at horses, and he was really easy to gallop. He just had a presence about him that everybody, when he was on the track, everybody knew who he was. So he was one of my favorites. And probably the other favorite to ride would probably be Gun Runner. He was easy to ride, easy going colt. I breezed him at OBS. He breezed 10-1. Anyway, but they ended up selling him prior to the sale. so he didn't go through the ring. But he was really easy to go, easy going, nice to ride. But his racing career really didn't take off until he got older, and then he really ran well. So probably those two. I mean, there have been a lot of other ones, but they've been. It's hard to pick who your favorites would be, I guess. But for sure, I mean, those two have come to the top for me.
Right. Well, Nick, as Michael mentioned at the outset, about a year ago, you were inducted into the North American Indigenous Hall of Fame. So what did this honor mean to you?
That was a great honor. I mean, to be inducted to any Hall of Fame is a great accomplishment. So it was a really nice accomplishment for me to have that in the long career of riding I've did, and to be honored with that award.
So in 2023, Equibase had you with 9 starts, your lowest since 2005. What can we expect in 2024? Will you be back out there, or what are we looking at?
Yeah, I'll be back out there. I don't ride a whole lot anymore. I had one hip replaced, and I get my other hip replaced. So I still gallop and ride and breeze horses on a daily basis. But as far as race riding, I mean, I'm 1 win away from 2,000 or 1,200 wins. I'm at 1199. That's including both thoroughbreds and quarter horses. So I'd like to win that for sure. One more win and maybe retire. But you never know. If I get my other hip replaced, then I might make a go of it again. I know Javier Castellano, he has his hips replaced, and he's still riding at a top level.
Nick, you earned the most money in your career on a horse called Smashing Bow. What was so special about that horse, and what can you tell us about his personality or her personality?
His desire to run, that horse, I mean, I rode him for a long time throughout his career, and the most amazing thing about him is he could run from 5/8 of a mile on the grass to 1.1 miles on the dirt in any track. I won races at Colonial, Downs on him, Laurel, Pimlico, Delaware, Monmouth, Mountaineer. Like he would run on any surface, any distance, and his desire to win. Like sometimes he would switch leads down the lane, sometimes he wouldn't. But if he was in front, turning for home or close to the front, he was hard to beat. He was really hard. He was tough horse. He was really like, so I really liked riding him. The other thing about him, like if he worked him in the morning by himself, he would barely work fast enough to get a time. But if you put him in company, he would work as fast as them or try to beat them the last little bit. I remember one week working him in 52 for a half a mile by himself, and then come back the next week with another stake horse and work 47. So he just liked the competition.
Do you have another one, Betty?
No, those are all really good answers. Smashing Bow, we have pictures of him in our house, so it's nice that it was a great question. That
was a really good question.
Yeah, because we've been talking about Smashing Bow the past 2 weeks, and he was a great horse, and Nick really likes talking about him. So, I don't think I have any other questions.
Okay. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay, well, Nick, I understand it that when you graduate high school in 94, your life was kind of at a crossroads because you had to decide, do you continue to ride professionally or do you pursue academics? So could you describe what went into that important life-changing decision for you?
Yeah, I had a good chance to go to college, full ride scholarship to Bemidji State University. I graduated with the 3.95 GPA. And I went I went to ride through my bug, where I rode in 1994 through my bug, and Bemidji still offered me a scholarship. I went down in a spill during my bug career, and I was off for 6 months. So that's when I decided to go back to college, and I got my scholarship back. And I went for 1 year of college. While doing that, I was bagging groceries at a grocery store in my hometown, and the paychecks were real small. And I'm like, I mean, minimum wage. But prior to that, I was making very good money out on the East Coast riding in Laurel and Pimlico. So I had the I made a lot of money as an apprentice. So I got thinking college, making minimum wage right now for riding. So I ended up going back to race riding and never looked back, and made a career out of it. That's lasted me as 33 years now. I've been riding racehorses.
Nice.
So
I
wanna
had choices, but I was like, I went with the racing.
Right. No regrets, right?
No regrets. I mean, it's been a lot of fun. Met a lot of great people. Lots of good memories, and racing's been good to me.
Right.
So I want to build off of Rollo's first question a little bit from earlier. So you mentioned your first win being your favorite. So this takes place in Winnipeg, riding your father's horse. I was going to ask you what you remember from that win, but you did go into that a little bit. But I mean, what did it mean to you to have that happen on your dad's horse to get your first win? And then I also saw that you won a horse on it was your grandfather's horse or something like that. And
Yeah.
And when I think Winnipeg, I don't think horse racing. I think freezing cold, hockey. Like how did you get into horse racing up there?
My father, his family was into horse race. My grandpa, they were into horse racing on a small level in the smaller tracks in and around Minnesota, the bush tracks, and like the Fort Pierce, the Aberdeens, and the different fair meets around Minnesota. So they would race during the summer when all those little meets were going on. So I, at a very young age, I was introduced to horse racing. And in the spring of the year, when I was younger, as a kid, I would go to the track with my father and do stuff, clean stalls, and hang out at the racetrack with it when he had a few horses. So that's how I got into the riding. And coming from Minnesota, I mean, maybe that was a good thing, because racing was only summertime, and so that kept me in school. I was able to focus on school. And but when I started riding, I rode. I started up in Winnipeg since Canterbury Park was closed for a couple of years when I first started in 1993.
Okay, that makes sense.
But as far as the other horse for my grandfather, that was a memorable win too, because it was 3 generations. It was a horse called Triple Bloom, and my grandfather owned it, and he was in the win picture. I think he was in the win picture, and my dad was the trainer, and I was the rider. So that was a special win as well, because he was kind of the one that got everybody into racing.
Right.
Well, thank you, Nick Goodwin, for joining us. We appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure. It was a lot of fun, a lot of good questions, and a fun time.
I want to thank your wife too, Betty Jo. Thank you for joining us and filling in as a panelist.
Yeah, you're welcome. This was fun. It was a nice interview. This is my second interview with Nick, and this one went way better than the first.
Well, glad we could help you out with that. I'll remind everybody, hit that like, subscribe, notification button. All right. We'll see you all next time. Thank you for watching. Have a great night, everybody.
All right. Bye.